Here are 50 amazing facts to blow your mind. Fruits are the part of the plant that come from a flower and the section that contains seeds. The rest is considered vegetables such as stems, leaves, and even flower buds. This means that avocados, beans, cucumbers, and tomatoes are actually fruits. In 2012, Quebec police arrested 4 men for stealing 6 million pounds of maple syrup with a total value of over $18 million from a warehouse. Well, someone likes pancakes. The Luther Burger is a bacon cheeseburger served on a Krispy Kreme donut bun and is named after R&B singer Luther Vandross. There's a rumor that Vandross invented the burger when he ran out of hamburger buns. When a woman is breastfeeding, a non-threatening lump may form in her armpit. This is because the glands in the breast can become too full of milk, and so the milk will overflow into the surrounding area. A plaque made for a 2002 Martin Luther King Day celebration accidentally thanked James Earl Ray, the man who pleaded guilty to assassinating King in 1968 for keeping the dream alive instead of actor James Earl Jones. Stomach acid is very acidic with pH measurements ranging from 1 to 3. This means that stomach acid is in the same approximate category as battery acid. 1 drop of stomach acid could eat through a piece of wood. In the NASA meatball design, the sphere represents a planet, the stars represent space, the red chevron is a wing representing aeronautics, and finally there's an orbiting spacecraft going around the wing. The world's first commercial jumbo jet was built in 1970 called the Huan T Trip Jumbo Jet and is now being used as a high-concept restaurant in Seoul, South Korea. When an ant dies, it lies where it fell for 2 days before the rest of the colony carries it away to a pile of other dead ants. Coins are sometimes left on military headstones to tell the deceased soldier's family that someone stopped by to pay their respects. And different coins have different meanings. A penny means that you visited, a nickel means that you and the deceased soldier trained at boot camp together, a dime means that you served with the soldier, and a quarter means that you were there when the soldier was killed. The Jägermeister logo represents Saint Hubertus, a 7th century German hunter and the patron saint of hunters. Bono got his name when his friends started calling him Bonovox, after the neighborhood hearing aid store Bonovox, which is Latin for good voice. He's been known as Bono ever since. There's a festival called the Montana Testicle Festival that's 5 days long and has been happening in Clinton, Montana ever since 1982. The main event of which is the competitive eating of bull testicles. To show their support for marriage equality, Ben & Jerry's banned Australians from buying 2 scoops of the same flavor at its scoop shops across the country. There's a species of spider in Australia named the wraparound spider that have the ability to wrap their bodies around small branches to hide from predators like birds. There was an instrument called the harmonica that was 37 glass bowls of different sizes threaded together on an iron spindle and color-coded with paint to identify the notes. People who played it reported side effects such as ringing in the ears, disorientation, and even madness. To defend their territory, the grasshopper mouse stands on 2 legs and produces a high-pitched howl resembling a wolf. It's estimated that 60% of the construction done at Machu Picchu was underground. Much of that consists of deep building foundations and crushed rock used as drainage. In 2010, Merriam-Webster's 10th edition dictionaries were removed from 4th and 5th grade classrooms in Southern California due to the addition of the definition of oral sex. Squids squirt water out fast enough to propel themselves through the air at up to 40.3 kilometers per hour. The word usher contains 4 personal pronouns: us, she, he, and her. Ophidiophobia is the abnormal fear of snakes and actually affects about 1/3 of all adults. 2.8 million churros are sold at Disneyland every single year. Churro. In 2016, neuroscientist Dr. Paul Zak checked the love hormone oxytocin levels in both cats and dogs after playing with their owners to see which animal cares more for their owners. What he found is that the hormone increased by an average of 57.2% in dogs and only 12% in cats. The countries with the most public holidays are Colombia and India, who both have about 18 days off a year. M&Ms were originally sold exclusively to the military after the the United States entered the war as part of American soldiers' rations. In 2009, a bird was blamed for a technical fault at the Large Hadron Collider after dropping a baguette on it. That's about as random as you can get. The Disney Channel movie High School Musical originally began as a script in 1999 entitled Grease 3. Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake were supposed to star as the children of Danny Zuko and Sandy Olsen from the 1978 film. In 2010, a 20-year-old man named Julian Barreau spent 6 months looking for the person who killed his online character in a virtual knife fight while playing Counter-Strike. When he eventually found the man living only a few kilometers away, he went to his house with a kitchen knife and stabbed him in the chest. In an episode of the sitcom Three's Company called The Charming Stranger, actor John Ritter accidentally flashed his testicles on camera. The episode originally aired on the 20th of December 1983, but it played on television for 17 years until a viewer alerted Nickelodeon in 2001. Pope Francis has never been on the internet in his life, but his Pontifex Twitter account has almost 18 million followers. In Indonesia, electric blue fire streams down the Kawah Ijen volcano at night. The glow is caused by the combustion of sulfuric gases. The president's wife was originally called the Presidentress until Zachary Taylor referred to Dolly Madison as our First Lady while eulogizing her in 1849. The world's largest type of peach is the Flamin' Fury PF 24007 peach. It originated at Paul Friday Farms in Coloma, Michigan, and they measure up to 7.62 centimeters in diameter at maturity. That's a bigger peach! Cats' eyes glow red in the dark because light reflects on a layer of tissue called the tapetum lucidum, which is on the back of the eyeball behind the retina. In May of 2017, a group of 40 scientists from Museums Victoria and the Australian government's Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation caught a fish in the Gervais Bay that had no face. It turned out to be a Typhlonus gnossus A, a type of fish that hasn't been seen in the area in over a century. The inventor of stop signs, one-way streets, taxi stands, traffic circles, and pedestrian safety islands, William Phelps Eno, never learned how to drive because he believed that it was a fad. In 1999, musician Yo-Yo Ma forgot his $2.5 million 266-year-old cello in the trunk of a taxi. Police actually managed to track it down at a garage in Queens just in time for the evening concert that night. Some animals engage in locomotor play, which is similar to the play of children sledding down a steep hill. Ducks have been observed floating through tidal rapids or fast-moving sections of rivers, and when they've reached the end, they hurry back up to do it all over again. The human eye can detect a candle flame to a distance of 2.75 kilometers away. Research done in 2011 found that judges make more lenient court decisions at the beginning of the day than right after a scheduled break like lunch. Male peacocks make fake mating noises to attract females. This causes more sexually active females to think the male is mating when he's really not. This makes the females believe that males are more genetically fit than others. Drug lord Pablo Escobar was earning so much money at one point that he wrote off 10% of it because of rats eating it in storage. If you add salt to pineapple, it causes it to taste sweeter. This is because table salt is primarily made of sodium chloride, and sodium is very good at reducing bitterness in food, and in this case, it reduces the bitterness in the pineapple. When early trains were invented, some people believed that women weren't meant to move at 80 kilometers per hour because they thought that their uteruses would fly out of their bodies. While the Beatles were recording Hey Jude, Paul McCartney hit the wrong note on the piano and exclaimed "effing hell," which can actually be heard on the song between 2:56 and 2:58. John Lennon insisted that they keep it in the song but bury it in the background because he thought it would be funny that no one would hear it, but they knew that it was there. In terms of per capita volume, Germany consumes the most candy in the world, eating an average of 13 kilograms of chocolate, sugar, and gum. At the French writer Victor Hugo's funeral, over 2 million people showed up in Paris from the Arc de Triomphe to the Pantheon, where he was buried. He shares the crypt in the Pantheon with Alexandre Dumas and Émile Zola, and most large French towns and cities have a street named after him. Onions are actually toxic for dogs because they contain a substance called thiosulfate, which canines don't have the enzyme used to digest it. All of the planets in the solar system could fit within the average distance between the Earth and the Moon. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, in 2014, the number of people who died from alcohol-induced causes was higher than the amount of people who died from overdosing on prescription painkillers and heroin combined, more than 30,700 Americans. China is the largest manufacturer and exporter of fireworks in the world. 90% of all fireworks come from China. During the Tudor era, people would very rarely take baths. They thought that they would contract the plague through open pores because they believed the disease was airborne. The Niagara Falls Suspension Bridge was the world's first working railway suspension bridge. It existed from 1855 to 1897 across the Niagara River. It spanned 251.5 meters and stood over 4 kilometers. There's a woman from Perth named Joy Milne who can smell Parkinson's disease. She first noticed the odor on her husband after he was diagnosed. She mentioned this to Dr. Thilo Kunath from the School of Biological Sciences at Edinburgh University. So he tested her ability and she was able to detect Parkinson's 100% of the time. William Shockley, who invented the transistor and was a Nobel Prize laureate, once suggested that people with IQs lower than 100 should be paid to be voluntarily sterilized. Within weeks of the death of their 15-year-old son, Leland Stanford and his wife decided that because they could no longer do anything for their son, that they would do something to memorialize him. So they founded Stanford University, where they said the children of California shall be our children. Writer H.P. Lovecraft, who is famous for his fantastical horror stories, once wrote an entire essay on why he believed that cats were better than dogs. At one point in time, white mineral spar, or gypsum, could be harvested from the Niagara riverbed, and some people would actually sell it to tourists, convincing them that it was pieces of petrified mist from Niagara Falls. Babies can see as soon as they're born, but their vision is blurry and fuzzy. Most newborns are also cross-eyed because of extra folds of skin in their inner corners of their eyes, but it goes away within the 3rd month. A Harvard study found that 80% of Donald Trump press coverage was negative during the first 100 days in office. Antarctica's ice sheet is more than 79 kilometers thick in some places. And if it were to melt, the world's oceans would rise by almost 60 meters. In 2014, Taylor Swift accidentally released a song called Track 3 due to a glitch in the iTunes store in Canada. The song was only 8 seconds of static and managed to immediately reach the top of the charts. In 2012, researchers from Rutgers University and the Monell Chemical Senses Center discovered that the reason that wine and steak taste so good together is because they're at the opposite ends of the culinary sensory spectrum, which is pleasing to your palate. In 2013, a programmer named Patrick McConlog offered a homeless man named Leo Grand a choice between $100 or 16 coding lessons. Grand actually chose the coding lessons and later released an app called Trees for Cars. The app is meant to increase carpooling to reduce the number of cars on the road and therefore decrease CO2 emissions. For the past decade, rapper Nelly has been secretly sending 2 kids to college every year. The name Jaguar originates from the Native American word Yaguar, meaning he who kills with one leap. In 2000, a group of researchers from 4 universities, including Johns Hopkins, discovered that snowflakes falling on water creates an extremely loud noise for marine animals. They found this through analyzing recordings done underwater during winter storms. Mount Everest was named after British surveyor George Everest in 1856. The peak was originally called Chomolungma by the Tibetans and Sagarmatha by the Nepalese, but the British decided to name it after Colonel George Everest, who is the head of the survey that confirmed that the mountain was the highest summit in the world. In 2015, 19-year-old Adam Armstrong mistakenly had an incorrect surname on his Ryanair airline ticket, so he decided to change his name because it would be cheaper than to fix the name on the ticket. To change the ticket, it would have cost him £220 in admin fees, while changing his name was free and just £103 for a new passport. Marcus Licinius Crassus created the first ever Roman fire brigade made up of 500 men. They would arrive at a burning building, and before they would put the fire out, they would bargain with the property owner over how much they would be paid. If Crassus thought the price wasn't high enough, he would simply simply let the building burn down and then offer to buy it back for a fraction of its value. The sensation of getting goosebumps and shivering as an emotional response is called frisson. While filming Super Mario Bros. The movie, lead actors John Leguizamo and Bob Hoskins would get drunk between scenes because the shooting was so laborious. Liam Hemsworth revealed that whenever he had to kiss his co-star Jennifer Lawrence while filming The Hunger Games: Mockingjay, Lawrence would purposefully eat something gross beforehand, such as garlic or tuna. Because of EU rules, Stilton cheese cannot be made in the village of Stilton. The protected designation of origin based on British government guidelines says that the name can only be used in the English counties of Leicestershire, Derbyshire, and Nottinghamshire. When Blockbuster video stores were in their prime in 2000, they earned almost $800 million in late fees, accounting for 16% of their revenue. For 85 years, the letters Q, W, and X were illegal in Turkey. The letters violated the law of November 1st, 1928 on adoption and application of Turkish letters. It was meant to change the writing system of Turkish from the Arabic-based system of the Ottomans to the Roman-based system. On May 3rd, 1972, guitarist for the band Stone of Crows, Les Harvey, got electrocuted on stage while tuning up for a show and died in front of 1,000 fans in Swansea, Wales. John Joseph Merlin was the first recorded person to invent roller skates in the 1760s in London, England. But Merlin was not actually good at skating. He once wore a pair of his new skates to a masquerade party at Carlisle House in London and crashed into a large mirror and severely injured himself. Musician Eric Clapton grew up thinking that his mother was his sister and his grandmother was his mother. This was because Clapton's mother was 16 and unmarried when she had him, so her parents stepped in as surrogate parents and raised Eric as their own. The term checkmate originates from the Arabic phrase shamat, which means the king is dead. In 2012, a customer at London's Playboy Club dropped and shattered a $77,615 bottle of cognac from 1788. The band Blink-182's original name was Duct Tape. The Q in Q-Tips stands for quality. They were originally named Q-Tips Baby Gays, but later the Baby Gays was dropped. In 2016, California had such a surplus of solar power that they were actually paying Arizona to take some. In New Jersey, it's illegal to wear a bulletproof vest while committing a violent crime. Walruses can stay awake for up to 84 hours straight. Thomas Jefferson helped popularize French fries in the United States. After being in France, he brought back a recipe for pommes de terre frites à cru en petites tranches, meaning potato deep fried while raw in small cuttings. They didn't really take off in popularity until the 1900s, but his handwritten recipe predates cookbook French fry recipes by half a century. In 2003, Marcelo Sanchez Villagra of the University of Tübingen and his team found a skeleton of the world's largest ever rodent in Venezuela. The creature was essentially a guinea pig the size of a cow. It weighed 700 kilograms, was 3 meters long and 1.3 meters tall, and lived 8 million years ago. In Hong Kong, about 80% of people flush their toilets with seawater because of a separate water distribution system that was created in the 1950s. This helps protect marine life as seawater is less toxic than fresh water for some marine animals. Thailand has a law dating back to 1935 called the Playing Cards Act, which prohibits people from possessing more than 120 playing cards. Thailand has strict anti-gambling laws. In fact, almost all forms of gambling are prohibited. In 2002, Neil Evenhuis published the existence of an extinct fly species that he named after model actress Carmen Electra, called the Carmen Electra She Kiss Me. A law was passed in December of 2012 that gives all former US presidents who served after January 1st, 1997, as well as their spouses, protection from the Secret Service for their entire lives. The law even gives their children protection until they're 16. The feeling of being pulled or the urge to jump while you're standing at a high place is called the call of the void, or l'appel du vide. Part of the reason that Kit Kat bars are so popular in Japan is that coincidentally, the name Kit Kat sounds like the Japanese phrase Kidokatsu, meaning you will surely win. This causes people to believe believe that the candy is good luck. Over 95% of all people are naturally immune to leprosy. About 25% of all the blood in your heart goes into your kidneys. 49-year-old Stefan Engels from Belgium set a world record for running a marathon every day for 365 days in 2010. He began in Belgium and ran 15,000 kilometers across 7 countries, ending in Barcelona. According to the United States National Library of Medicine, 12% of people dream only in black and white. People 25 and younger almost never dream in black and white, and people 55 and older claim to dream in color only about 75% of the time. The food chain Subway has more than 38 million sandwich combinations. The longest mountain range on Earth is actually underwater. The mid-ocean range is over 80,000 kilometers long, and much of it is volcanic. When mating, dragonflies and damselflies form their body into a heart shape. The males use claspers at the end of their abdomen, which fit perfectly into species-specific grooves on the female, and both contort until a heart is formed. In an attempt to deal with a devastating mosquito population in the Florida Keys, real estate developer Richter Clyde Perky constructed a 2.74 meter tall bat house. He claimed that the structure had everything that a little bat heart could desire, and once a decent number of the animals moved in, they would begin eliminating the insects pestering everyone. Unfortunately, not a single bat moved in. Banana trees are not actually trees, they're hibiscus plants or herbs. Their trunks are made up of tightened leaves and contain no woody tissue. The first ever Google Doodle replaced the standard logo on August 30th, 1998 as a type of out-of-office message. It featured a Burning Man stick figure that informed people that founders Larry and Sergey couldn't fix any bugs or issues because they were attending the Burning Man festival in Nevada. In 1929, 2 researchers at Princeton University successfully transformed a house cat into a working telephone. Somehow the cat actually survived, only to die when a pair tried to repeat the experiment. Before closing in 2006, Eglin Federal Prison Camp, a minimum security facility, was considered to be so cushy that it was given the nickname Club Fed. Just think, there was a time when inmates could play golf or tennis, go swimming, and even dine on lobster. All on your tax dollar. In 1838, Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna was hit by cannon fire and had to have his leg amputated. Strangely, 4 years after the limb was removed, the general ordered it to be dug up and given a full military funeral, complete with speeches and prayers. It was buried in a crystal vase beneath an elaborate monument in Santa Paula Cemetery. Plane crashes happen far less often than you might think. Very few flights actually crash, and if they did, the odds that you die in one are only 1 in 11 million. Literally, even if the plane that you're in does go down, nearly 95.7% of people survive them. Studies have shown that the first thing people notice about you subconsciously is what you're wearing on your feet, your shoes. On August 3rd, 2015, the South Florida Museum opened a brand new exhibit showcasing the largest collection of fossilized poop on the planet. Another poop fact is that the largest fossilized turd in their collection is from a prehistoric crocodile, and it's the size of a puppy. The team has nicknamed it Precious. I'm not joking. Although they have a rodent-like appearance, elephant shrews are not classified with true shrews. As insectivorous mammals, they actually have more in common with elephants than shrews. Donkeys and zebras are capable of mating with each other. There's a visual for you. The crossbreed of the 2 species is called a zonkey. Shot in the head in 1915 during World War I, Paul Kern managed to survive, but his frontal lobe had taken severe damage. After waking up from surgery, the Hungarian man did not sleep again. But amazingly, he passed away in 1955, 40 years after being shot and having never slept a wink during that time. 10 years after being purchased, the average mattress more than doubles in weight due to dead skin, sweat, and dust mites it takes in. You might want to think about changing your mattress. Baby bats are usually born feet first, and often the mother will hang upside down and catch the newborn in her wings as it leaves her. Between 1955 and 1966, a number of people hiking in the woods along the Tomoka River near Daytona, Florida, reported seeing a mysterious pink fog that stayed close to the ground. found. Many of them claim that the cloud was carnivorous, and it's been blamed for the disappearances of at least a dozen people. Still to this day, it's unknown what the fog is or where it came from. Yo, we're living in an M. Night Shyamalan movie. The first ever Google server racks were built using Lego bricks. At the time, the construction toys were considered cost-effective, and the structures were easier to expand than more permanent solutions. High school student David Merrill once conducted an experiment on mice, making them listen to heavy metal music 24 hours a day and testing to see if it had any negative effect on their ability to navigate a maze. And he was kind of right, because instead of getting smarter, the mice killed each other. In the winter of 1916 to 1917, large packs of starving wolves began attacking the German and Russian forces battling it out in World War I. Things became so bad that both sides agreed to a temporary alliance simply to deal with the vicious animals. According to mathematicians, every glass of water you drink has at least one molecule of water in it that was once consumed by Cleopatra. Additionally, every sip you take has at least one that was consumed by a dinosaur. On April 23, 1982, frustrated with border patrol roadblocks and being treated like a foreign country, the city of Key West, Florida declared secession from the United States and became a conch republic. The new nation then declared war on the US, surrendered less than a minute later, and immediately applied for $1 billion in foreign aid money. Amazingly, the silly ordeal led to real change, and the roadblocks were soon after removed. Flamingos consume food by stirring up mud in shallow waters with their webbed feet, and then taking a mouthful of the murk. Their beaks have a filter-like structure which takes out creatures like plankton, tiny fish, and crustaceans, which they survive on. The pink color that flamingos are known for isn't the shade that they are naturally. They're actually a very pale, almost white color, and get the deeper pink hues due to the ingestion of beta-carotene, an organic pigment in the species of plankton and crustaceans they eat. Niger is considered to be the country with the youngest population. Though it's home to 18 million people, nearly half of them are under 15 years old. The reason for this is likely to the ridiculously high fertility rate of 6.6 children per every woman. People in Soviet labor camps used to sneak out and ingest condoms attached to rubber tubes. They would fill them with raw alcohol and sneak them back to the camp where other prisoners would hang them upside down to use them as human kegs. In 1939, German dictator Adolf Hitler was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize by Eric Brandt, a member of the Swedish parliament. The nomination was ultimately cancelled and no peace prize was ever given out that year. Despite claims that it only sank after its completion, Italy's Leaning Tower of Pisa was never actually straight. The foundation of the structure was built on soft ground that never settled properly, and thus was incapable of supporting any weight evenly. A law was passed in Florida in 1998 that says that all state-funded daycares and preschools had to play classical music for children. It was believed that the Mozart effect would help properly develop young minds, and the law remains today, even after the effect was disapproved. Ironically, when the American Civil War began, Union General Ulysses S. Grant owned at least one slave, while Confederate General Robert E. Lee owned none. In 1666, the Great Fire of London devastated the city, destroying over 13,300 buildings and leaving as many as 70,000 inhabitants without homes. But despite this, only 6 verified deaths were officially recorded as having occurred. A leech's body is divided into 32 segments, each one of them with its own brain. They also have 2 reproductive organs and 9 pairs of testes. Those are complicated creatures. Google has a rule that no part of their offices can be more than 150 feet or 45.7 meters from some type of food. Like the legendary Bigfoot in the more northern states, Florida has its own mythical beast, the skunk ape. This 2.4 meter tall humanoid primate, which apparently smells like rotten eggs or cow manure, was incredibly popular in the 70s. So many sightings were reported that state representatives actually attempted to make it a misdemeanor to take, possess, harm, or molest anthropoid or humanoid animals. Due to mutations in their genes, house cats, bottlenose dolphins, and a number of other carnivorous creatures cannot detect sugar or taste any sweetness at all. Birds are not affected by the heat given off when wild chilies are consumed. This is believed to be an evolutionary trait needed for birds to be able to spread seeds in a wider area in their droppings. The type of music you listen to can not only influence your mood, but how you think. Studies show that different genres of music affect your brain in different ways, making you able to heal from emotional trauma faster, be more patient, or even make you a more confident person. In 1912, a raffle was held on behalf of an orphanage in Paris, France, that needed money to stay afloat. But as prizes, those who won the lottery were given babies. There was an Amish beach in Sarasota, Florida called Pinecraft, where people who prefer a simpler life can enjoy the sand and sun while keeping to their traditions and lifestyle. It's literally an Amish paradise and is likely the only one of its kind on Earth. The longest war in recorded history was the 335 Years' War. It was between the Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly from 1651 to 1986. However, not only were there no casualties, but not a single shot was fired. When they were looking for a new shape for their bottles in 1915, Coca-Cola only told glass makers to design a bottle so distinct that you would recognize it by feel in the dark or lying broken on the ground. The Root Glass Company won the elongated ribbed cocoa bean design the soda company is famous for today. In 2013, pilot Linda Ducharme renewed her vows with Bruce, a Ferris wheel she had previously married. During the ceremony, she fed the spinning ride a slice of pizza, and a Catholic priest officiant declared, "I tie you flesh and steel." Yeah, this is not a joke again, and Ducharme truly loves Bruce. Yeah, you're looking kind of dry today, Bruce. Gonna oil you up. Oh yeah, you like that? Located in Longwood, Florida, the Senator was a 3,500-year-old cypress tree that was considered the 5th oldest on Earth. Unfortunately, in 2012, a woman accidentally burned it down after climbing inside its huge hollowed-out trunk and smoked meth. When asked how she felt, the woman claimed she couldn't believe she burned down a tree older than Jesus. Ring-tailed lemur males will often have stink fights with each other, in which they apply secretions from their scent glands to their incredibly long tails and then waft it at their opponents. Kind of like people farting in real life. Oh, look at that, smell it. While in a dressing room at the Grammy Awards, singer Katy Perry asked fellow artists Taylor Swift and Miley Cyrus for locks of their hair. The pair obliged, and Perry tied a ribbon around each clipping and put them in her purse. Nope, nobody knows why. Water isn't actually a good conductor of electricity. In fact, it's an insulator. The impurities in the water are what allow for the conduction of electricity, not the H2O itself. At the time of his death, Elvis Presley was planning his first European tour. He only ever held 5 official concerts outside of the United States, and every one of them was in Canada. According to the World Health Organization, the Republic of Nauru has the largest percentage of overweight inhabitants among all countries. A report done in 2007 revealed that around 94.5% of the population was overweight. In comparison, the United States came in 9th with 74.1%. Blue jays are capable of mimicking the cries of other birds, such as red-tailed hawks. They use this ability to keep predators away and sometimes to clear other birds away from food sources so that they can have it all to themselves. There is a giraffe sanctuary in Kenya called Giraffe Manor. It's also a hotel where guests can hang out with giraffes and feed them from their windows. Viagra was originally developed to treat high blood pressure. The fact that it enhances erections was discovered purely by accident. Imagine being that guy. Oh, what's happening? In 1903, a man named John Thurman started a horse-drawn vacuum system with door-to-door service. It cost $4 per home. Pigs have the ability to be purposefully manipulative. They're intelligent enough to pinpoint a weak spot, remember it, and use it to their advantage later on. The Free Little Library is a non-profit organization that was started back in 2009 that offers free books in many little libraries in communities all over the world. Today, there are over 50,000 book exchanges worldwide. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, the #1 cause of death in the United States in 2014 was heart disease with over 600,000 deaths, followed by cancer with 591,000. Bedbugs don't have wings and they can't fly or jump. Isn't that reassuring? They can, however, live for months without food. The world's largest snake, an 8-meter-long, approximately 250-kilogram reticulated python, was captured at a Malaysian construction site, but the snake ended up dying just 3 days later after its discovery while laying an egg. Scientists from Tufts University have created worms with the heads and brains of other species of worms by manipulating cell communication. Instead of altering their DNA, the scientists manipulated proteins that control conversations between cells. According to the Guinness World Records, the oldest message in a bottle spent 108 years, 4 months, and 18 days at sea. It was put in the sea by the Marine Biological Association in the United Kingdom in November of 1906. It washed ashore on Amrum Island in Germany on April 17, 2015. These horrific creatures are diving bell spiders who can use air bubbles to breathe underwater, treating them like mini scuba diving tanks. The Shin Yokoyama Ramen Museum in Yokohama City, Japan is a museum dedicated to the ramen noodle. Japan is about to build a 123-meter Ferris wheel, and it's going to have see-through floors. The Red Horse Osaka wheel will be the 5th tallest Ferris wheel in the world and the tallest in Japan. And also the most terrifying, fruitarianism is a subset of veganism. It's a diet that consists primarily of fruit and possible nuts and seeds. In fact, some fruitarians will only eat what falls or what would naturally fall from a plant. Some species of scorpions can live up to 1 year without any food or water. A study published in the journal Brain Structure and Function found that after monitoring mice under the effects of both silence and different types of noise, that 2 hours of silence per day promoted cell growth in the part of the brain that controls memory, emotion, and learning. According to the National Institution of Health, 1 out of every 2,000 to 3,000 babies born are born with teeth. They are called natal teeth, and I call them terrifying. Clint Eastwood was the mayor of Carmel, California from 1986 to 1988. His salary was $200 a month. IKEA in Australia once gave away cribs to couples that could prove that their babies were born on November 14th, exactly 9 months to the day from Valentine's Day. There's an umbrella called the Umbrella that can actually predict when it's about to rain and send an alert to your smartphone reminding you to bring your umbrella along. Not only that, but if you forget it in a restaurant, it can send you a notification via Bluetooth that you forgot it before you get too far. According to the Guinness World Records, the largest living crocodile in captivity is 5.5 meters. The Australian saltwater crocodile is the largest and most fearsome of today's species. They can live for more than 100 years and grow up to 7 meters and weigh more than 1 ton. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs made slaves fan their wine all night to cool it down. Jellyfish are the ocean's most efficient swimmers. They consume 48% less oxygen than any other swimming animal. A blue whale's heart can reach the size of a small car and can weigh almost 1 ton. In 2012, a cat in Boston survived a fall from a 19-story window and survived. It literally only walked away with a bruised chest. The horned lizard has blood-filled sinuses within the eye sockets that squirt blood in self-defense by swelling and rupturing. According to NASA, it would take humans roughly 6 months to travel to Mars and another 6 months to return. On top of that, astronauts that go would have to stay 18 to 20 months on the planet before the planets realign for a return trip. In total, the whole trip would take about 2.5 years and cost up to $40 billion. Back in the mid-2000s, Kim Kardashian used to be Paris Hilton's personal assistant. About 25 to 40% of people have motion sickness. According to the University of Maryland Medical Center, women are more susceptible than men, and Asians are more susceptible than white or black people. According to the Guinness World Records, the longest video game marathon playing World of Warcraft was 29 hours and 31 minutes. This was achieved by Hekaterina Kunimi Iglesias, aka Kunimi Cat, in Vigo, Spain on the 29th to 30th of March back in 2014. Pollution in China actually alters the weather in the United States. Once it gets into the atmosphere over the US, the pollution stops clouds from producing rain and snow, i.e., more pollution equals less precipitation. It also only takes just 5 days for the jet stream to carry heavy heavy air pollution from China to the United States. There is an over 50-kilometer long tunnel that connects the United Kingdom to Europe. It's called the Channel Tunnel or Chunnel and is located underneath the English Channel. The trip underneath through the channel takes only about 30 minutes, and in fact, an entire trip from London to Paris is only 2 hours and 15 minutes. The most expensive rose ever developed is the Juliette rose. Famed rose breeder David Austin created it over the course of 15 years, and it cost a whopping £3 million. Just days after the release of Eminem's The Marshall Mathers LP2, his childhood home that is on the cover mysteriously caught fire and was left in ruin. Wombat poop is shaped like a cube. On August 21st, 1986, Lake Nyos, a volcanic lake in Cameroon, Africa, suffocated over 1,746 people. The Limnic eruption caused 1.2 cubic kilometers of CO2 to be released in roughly 20 seconds. This massive wave of deadly gas swept over the countryside, killing people as far away as 25 kilometers. Kevin Spacey's brother, Randy Fowler, is a Rod Stewart impersonator. The consumption of poppy seeds can actually cause positive results on drug screening tests. The Darwin's bark spider is small and inconspicuous, but it can spin a web 25 meters across that's able to span an entire river, and it's stronger than Kevlar. In the Miambo woodland area of Central Africa, scientists discovered an abandoned termite mound that is more than 2,200 years old. According to the Guinness World Records, the smallest dog in terms of length is Brandy, a female Chihuahua from Florida. She measures only 15.2 centimeters from the nose to the tip of her tail as of January 31st, 2005. The most lightning-prone place in the world, according to NASA, is Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela. Storms light up the skies almost 300 nights each year. The holes at the top of pen caps are there to prevent you from choking if swallowed. Scientists in Sweden have developed transparent wood that can actually be used as windows. The restaurant Chomp Eatery in Los Angeles is offering a rainbow grilled cheese sandwich. Ooh, tell me that doesn't look good. In fact, the blue tastes like lavender, the green like basil, the red like tomatoes, and the yellow tastes like plain cheese. Tokyo has the world's first hedgehog cafe. It has 20 to 30 friendly hedgehogs of different breeds that you can actually spend time with and even take home. Ukrainian drivers are converting their cars into being fueled by wood burners to save money on expensive gasoline. Oklahoma man Paul Phillips loves fishing so much that he actually dug up his own pond and then built a house over it. There's a trap door in his living room that he can fish from whenever he wants. Earth Day was founded by US Senator Gaylor Nelson as a way to promote the environmental movement. The first ever Earth Day was held on April 22nd, 1970. It has been celebrated on that day every year since. The Japanese spider crab has the largest leg span of any arthropod, reaching over 3.6 meters in length. That's disturbing. In 2012, the street artist Megs converted an old bridge in Wuppertal, Germany into a giant Lego structure using colored panels to create the illusion of the underside of Lego bricks. In most European countries, including Britain, declawing your cat is illegal. If you're caught declawing a cat in Israel, you can actually be sent to jail for a year and be fined $20,000. Scotland, Italy, New Zealand, and over 30 other countries have also followed suit. In New Zealand, it's illegal to own just one guinea pig because they are very lonely and social creatures. In fact, they have matchmaking companies to match up your guinea pig if their partner dies, which is part of a sweeping animals' rights legislation that was first introduced in 2008. If you live in Australia, you're 20 times more likely to drown than be bitten by a shark. In fact, to put it into perspective, you're significantly more likely to win the top prize in the lottery than even being involved in a shark accident of any kind. Humans are friends, not food. According to the World Health Organization, there are 360 million people in the world with disabling hearing loss. That's around 5% of the entire world's population. 32 million of them are children between the ages of 0 and 14. Luckily, things like captions exist, just like on this video. On July 13th, 1955, nightclub owner Ruth Ellis was the last woman to be executed for murder in Great Britain. Britain. She was hanged for killing her boyfriend, and it wasn't until 1965 that the death penalty for murder was banned in England, Scotland, and Wales. A study in the Journal of Current Biology found that those people who exercised 4 hours after learning something new retained the information better 2 days later than those who exercised immediately or not at all. The reason that tires are black and not another color is because of the chemical that's added to the tires called carbon black. It's added to protect tires against ozone and UV damage, and it drastically prolongs the life of any tire, which is why all tire manufacturers use it. Researchers from the UK's Manchester Metropolitan University found that mice don't really like cheese as much as we think. They much more prefer fruit and grains. The rumor of them liking cheese so much was spread via pop culture and cartoons. Summer on the planet Uranus lasts 42 years long, followed by 42 years of winter. It's Earth's tilt that gives us our seasons, but Uranus's is significantly more on its side in relation to its poles, hence the length of its seasons. There's a place in Arizona called the Boneyard that is the final resting place of about 3,000 military aircraft, some of them up to 60 years old. They literally just sit there and are gradually harvested for spare parts over time. There's a very rare illness called Klein-Levin syndrome, or Sleeping Beauty syndrome, where those affected sleep for up to 20 hours per day for days, weeks, or even months at a time, only waking to use the washroom or eat. Flamingos are pink because the algae and crustaceans like shrimp and prawns that they eat contain pigments called carotenoids. Their liver breaks down the carotenoids into pink and orange pigment molecules that get deposited in their feathers, bill, and legs. You can actually reshape some babies' ears. Some of them have a condition called liddling, where the top part of the cartilage in the ear is basically folded over so the top ridge is kind of rounded over. However, there's actually a mold called earwell that can change the shape of your baby's ear in approximately 6 weeks. There are more bicycles than people in Copenhagen and 5 times as many bicycles as cars. Over 50% of city dwellers commute by bicycle, and over 41% arrive at their place of work or study by bike. Monkey brains are considered a delicacy in parts of South Asia, Africa, and China. They're considered an easily digestible substance, often given to invalids and children, and there are even entire cookbooks dedicated on how to cook them. It takes Pluto 241 years to orbit the sun. That's because Pluto orbits at an average distance of 3.7 billion miles from the sun, while Earth only orbits at 93 million miles. Octopuses will actually break off a limb as part of a fight to impress a mate or to get away from a predator. They will also eat their own arms once in a while, which some scientists believe may be due to a disease of some sort. The 7 rays on the Statue of Liberty's crown stand for each of the 7 continents. They each measure 9 feet long and weigh as much as 150 pounds. In addition, its overall height is 305 feet from its base and has a 35-foot waistline and weighs 225 tons. Cuba has a 99.8% literacy rate, one of the highest in the whole world. When flying in a flock, flamingos can fly as fast as 35 miles per hour. They may seem clumsy in flight, however, because their long necks stretch out in front of their bodies and their long legs dangle well past their short tails. The first electric traffic light was installed on August 5th, 1914 on the corner of Euclid Avenue and East 105th Street in Cleveland, Ohio. Based on the design by James Hodge, who received a US patent for his municipal traffic control system, it consisted of 4 pairs of red and green lights that served as stop and go indicators, each mounted on a corner post. In California, there's a law that prohibits a vehicle without a driver to exceed 60 miles per hour. Companies like Google, who make autonomous cars, have the technology to make them go much faster, but must limit them based on this law. On September 13th, 1916, the town of Irwin, Tennessee, hung an elephant nicknamed Murderous Mary because she mauled one of her keepers to death. It required a massive crane to accomplish and was done because hangings and lynchings were a popular form of justice at the time. The automotive industry used to use sperm whale oil to lubricate new cars. In fact, the stuff works so well that huge mammals were actually hunted almost to extinction, so the US declared sperm whales an endangered species and switched to the new whale-free automatic transmission fluid. Believe it or not, you can determine the temperature temperature outside by counting the chirps made by crickets. According to the Farmer's Almanac, to convert cricket chirps to Celsius, you count the number of chirps in 25 seconds, divide by 3, then add 4 to get the temperature. The 31st president of the United States, Herbert Hoover, spent none of his salary on himself and instead gave it away to charities or as income supplements to his associates. There's something called a moonbow or lunar rainbow that's a rainbow that can be seen at night and happens very rarely. In order for this to happen, a full moon is needed, it must be raining opposite to the moon, the sky must be dark, and the moon must be less than 42 degrees high. There's a law in Pacific Grove, California that prohibits the molesting of monarch butterflies. Seriously. Ordinance 11.48.010 states that it is declared to be unlawful for any person to molest or interfere with in any way the peaceful occupancy of the monarch butterfly on their annual visit to the city of Pacific Grove, and goes on like that for several more sentences. The longest solar eclipse in the 21st century lasted 6 minutes and 39 seconds, and it won't be surpassed in duration until the eclipse of June 13th, 2132. Venus and Uranus are the only planets that rotate clockwise. The other 6 planets in the solar system rotate counterclockwise. Lobsters are able to regenerate lost eyes, claws, and antennae. You can also determine the gender of a lobster by looking at its swimmerets, the small feathery appendages on the underside of its tail. The first pair of swimmerets closest to the body are hard and bony on a male and soft and feathery on a female. It is illegal in Mobile, Alabama to possess confetti. It's also illegal to store, use, manufacture, sell, offer for sale, give away, or even handle confetti. Pope Francis broke a record when he hit 1 million Instagram followers within 12 hours of starting the account. The previous record was set by David Beckham at 1 million within 24 hours. He christened the account on a Saturday with a photo of him kneeling in prayer with an accompanying message that said "Pray for me" in 9 languages. Before Samuel L. Jackson became a movie star, he was Bill Cosby's camera stand-in on The Cosby Show. Gonna touch your butt with some Jell-O pudding. Leonardo da Vinci was dyslexic. Also, strangely, not because of his dyslexia, he chose to write all of his notes to himself backwards in mirror writing, meaning that you can only read them in the reflection of a mirror. However, notes that he wrote to other people, he wrote in a normal direction. In Albania, nodding your head means no and shaking your head means yes. A human taste bud has an average lifespan of 7 to 10 days. Taste bud cells undergo continual turnover even into adulthood, but taste buds in rats last from 2 days to over 3 weeks. There were 13 couples celebrating their honeymoon on the Titanic. However, none of them survived upon impact and the subsequent sinking of the boat. Dogs love the herb anise the same way that cats love catnip. In fact, anise is the scent on the artificial rabbit that is used in greyhound races to get the dogs to run. The hardest bone in the human body is the jawbone. Also known as the mandible, it's also the largest and strongest bone in the human face. Believe it or not, you consume 1/10 of a calorie by licking a US stamp, but if you were to lick a stamp in Britain, it's 5.9 calories per lick, and the adhesive on a larger commemorative or special British stamp contains a whopping 14.5 calories. Camels actually have 3 eyelids to protect their eyes from blowing sand. The upper and lower eyelids have eyelashes. However, there's a third one that's a thin membrane that they can see through even in a sandstorm. On July 5th, 1996, the first mammal ever was successfully cloned. Dolly the sheep was cloned from an adult cell at the Roslin Institute in Scotland. She was named after Dolly Parton because she was cloned from a mammary cell. Well, at least that's a better name than her codename 6LL3. Doesn't ring the same bell. Mosquitoes can detect carbon dioxide from 75 feet away. In fact, that's how they find their victims, specifically you. A galactic year, also known as a cosmic year, is the duration of a complete rotation of the Milky Way, which is approximately 200 million terrestrial years. The human aorta is the largest artery in the human body and is about the size of a garden hose. There's a dog breed called Basenji that doesn't have the ability to bark. It can produce produce a yodeling howl sound though. It's a small to medium-sized, square-shaped animal that is believed to be bred intentionally without the ability to bark. Gatorade was named after the Florida Gators. In 1965, a team of university physicians in Florida were approached by a University of Florida's assistant football coach because he wanted to find out why his players were being affected by the heat and heat-related illnesses. They ended up creating the drink Gatorade that balanced carbohydrates and electrolytes. The first ever video to air on MTV was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles on August 1st, 1981. That was over 36 years ago, and in fact, the very first original broadcast is on YouTube right now. There's afros and neon lights everywhere, I warn you. Amish men are actually clean shaven prior to getting married, but are required to grow their beards after marriage. This and all aspects of Amish life are dictated by a list of written and oral rules known as Ordnung, which outlines the basics of the Amish faith and helps to define what it means to be Amish. Theodore Roosevelt was the youngest president in US history. He took office at just 42 years old in 1901, following the assassination of William McKinley, for whom he served as vice president. Owning a hamster, gerbil, or ferret is illegal in Hawaii. You're also not allowed to own an alligator, a piranha, or a toucan, but those would be a lot more rare, and why would you ever want to own an alligator in the first place, you weirdo? In 2013, Ben & Jerry's received the Compassion in World Farming's Good Dairy Award for their high-quality treatment of their cows, which includes making sure that they get regular massages. They also pay their employees double minimum wage, so it's not just the moo-moos getting the love. There's an area in France covering 39 square miles known as Zone Rouge. It's so polluted with unexploded chemical munitions, human and animal remains from both world wars, humans are prohibited by law from entering that area. There's a ghost town in Tiandishang, China that was built in 2007 that looks just like Paris. It includes a 354-foot replica of the Eiffel Tower. They also have replica Italian, German, and English towns, but they too are ghost towns. In 2006, a group of researchers in Iceland found a really old clam. In order to find out its age, instead of counting the rings on the outside of the clam, they opened it and counted the rings on the inside, ultimately killing the clam. But the clam itself ended up being 507 years old, the world's oldest animal. Former two-time heavyweight champion George Foreman is now the pastor of North Houston's Church of the Lord Jesus Christ. The 68-year-old reverend was inspired to join the church as he himself grew up in poverty and wanted to help others after a successful career. In January of 1966, the US accidentally bombed Spain. An Air Force bomber carrying 4 nuclear weapons collided with its refueling tanker over the Spanish town of Palomares, sending the bombs screaming towards Earth. ESPN, the sports television channel, is actually owned by Disney with the majority ownership of 80%. But that's not all. Disney also owns Pixar, Lucasfilm, Marvel, ABC Broadcasting Company, and A&E, as well as the History Channel. In 2015, Japan lifted its 67-year-old ban on dancing that it put in place after World War II. They forbade dancing in venues without a special dance license. The law was originally put into place after the Second World War in an effort to crack down on dance halls that were often a hotbed for prostitution. The scientific name for brain freeze is actually cephalopalatine ganglioneuralgia. Brain freezes happen because the cold dilates arteries, which causes a sudden rush of blood to the brain, which causes pressure and causes pain. Rabbits actually have the ability to sleep with their eyes open. They go into a trance-like state, which is half sleep. The benefit of this is in the wild, it allows them to get away from predators in a hurry. According to Lita Proctor, the program coordinator of the National Institute of Health's Human Microbiome Project, we have enough bacteria in our bodies to fill a large soup can. That's up to 5 pounds of bacteria. Blah. The colossal squid has the largest eyes ever studied in the animal kingdom, measuring almost 11 inches, which is roughly the same size as a volleyball. In fact, researchers believe that they may be the largest eyes that ever existed. Some sharks can live up to 100 years old. Although most of them live 20 to 30 years in the wild, some species, such as the spiny dogfish, live well beyond 100 100 years. Cats actually sweat through their paws. Cats do have sweat glands, but their skin is covered in fur, so the amount of cooling that the sweat can provide them is minimal. The paw pads have the most sweat glands, so they sweat there mostly. The sand tiger shark practices cannibalism in the womb. They eat all of the surrounding eggs in the uterus until only one remains. Once they develop their embryonic teeth, they start to eat the other embryos, killing their unborn brothers and sisters. It's survival of the fittest. Researchers in the UK have created a robotic rectum for proctologists to practice their physical rectal exams. It allows medical professionals to learn without the use of real-life volunteers. I know that's much more convenient, but there's something inherently disturbing about robot ass. 32-year-old California native Joey Jaws Chestnut reclaimed his title by winning the 2016 annual Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest held at Coney Island. He wolfed down 70 hot dogs in just 10 minutes. That's one hot dog every 8.6 seconds. Scientists at Junaid University in India have extracted gold from the urine of rare indigenous breeds of cattle. They analyzed 400 gear cows and found traces of ionized gold salts that they were able to isolate, precipitate, extract, solidify, and melt between 3 to 10 milligrams of gold per liter of urine. Skunks are actually immune to snake venom. The longest tennis match in history was between Frenchman Nicolas Mout and American John Isner at the 2010 Wimbledon Championships. It lasted 11 hours and 5 minutes over 3 days and consisted of 183 games. John Isner ended up being the winner. The first occurrence of identical bird twins ever was discovered in the emu. Bears are the only mammals that don't pee or poo during the winter hibernation months, and doctors have actually studied how the bears recycle their urine to help human patients with kidney failure. Both Demi Lovato and Selena Gomez were on the TV show Barney and Friends when they were kids. In fact, the longtime friends were constantly shown together dancing and singing on screen. San Francisco uses pee repellent paint to protect public walls from bodily fluids. It causes urine to splash back at the offender. This was inspired by Hamburg, Germany, who painted all of their city walls with this repellent and saw public urination drop significantly. Alaska has the longest coastline in the United States at 6,640 miles long. The Taj Mahal in India took over 22 years to build. Construction began in 1632 and finished in 1653. It was built when Emperor Shah Jahan was filled with grief over his passing wife and wanted to create a testament to their love. Our mouths secrete approximately 1 liter of saliva per day. Reykjavik in Iceland actually heat their sidewalks and streets to keep them free of ice and snow. Since they began installing these heated roads over a decade ago, they've enjoyed significant savings from not having to spend taxpayer money on snow removal services. Bald eagles build nests that are typically around 5 feet in diameter. They often use the same nests year after year, and they can become even bigger, as big as 9 feet and weighing as much as 2 tons. A funnel cloud is only considered a tornado when it actually touches the ground. In 2005, the Vietnamese art collective group Gelatin, over a 5-year period, knitted a gigantic pink woolen rabbit with its guts hanging out. They named it Has, meaning hair, and plopped it on a hill in the Piedmont region of Italy. It is over 200 feet long and 20 feet high. They put it there for hikers to enjoy, and it will decay by the year 2025. The Chinese soft-shelled turtle is the first animal known to be able to pee out of its mouth. This was first discovered by researchers at the National University of Singapore, who noticed that turtles would stick their heads into puddles of water and wiggle their tongues, but they weren't drinking. YouTube has over 1 billion active users monthly. Compare that to Facebook with 1.8 billion, Instagram with 600 million, Twitter with 319 million, and Snapchat with an estimated 301 million. Scientists from Georgia State University have found that monkeys share another quality with humans. They are also susceptible to optical illusions. To test this, capuchin and rhesus monkeys looked at a visual illusion where 2 dots were surrounded by rings, but were actually the same size, and they were tricked much like many people were. A group of hippos is called a crash, a group of zebras is called a zeal, a group of crows is called a murder, a group of bears is called a sleuth, a group group of apes is called a shrewdness, a group of giraffes is called a tower, and a group of emus is called a mob. In Venezuela, a liter of water costs more than a liter of fuel. Even with the sudden price hikes in 2016 of 1,329% for 91 octane related gasoline and over 6,000% for 95 octane, gasoline still remains cheaper than clean drinking water. The oldest octopus fossil was discovered in northeast Illinois, US. It dates back approximately 296 million years. Antarctica contains 90% of all the ice on the planet in an area that's just under 1.5 times the size of the United States. The amount of ice there is staggering. In some parts, such as East Antarctica, ice averages 1.2 miles thick. But despite its thick ice, Antarctica is classified as a desert because so little moisture falls from the sky every year. According to scientists at Los Alamos National Laboratory's Lujan Neutron Scattering Center, the world's largest gold crystal was found years ago in Venezuela. It's the size of a golf ball and weighs half a pound and is estimated to be worth $1.5 million. Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump are the only two divorced men to ever be elected president. That includes more than 2 centuries worth of US presidential elections. It is illegal to die in London's Houses of Parliament. Pteridophobia is the fear of ferns. Dog blood type is different than the types found in people. In fact, there are 6 major blood types, but amazingly, 42% of dogs have the same type, which is universal. According to National Geographic explorer Zeb Hogan, the Wells catfish is the largest freshwater fish in Europe. It can grow up to 15 feet long, weigh as much as 660 pounds, and live for decades, possibly as long as 80 years. A specially designed radio-controlled Mini was used to transport javelins, hammers, shots, and discuses around the field of the London 2012 Olympic Games. The Minis are 39 inches long and can carry loads of up to 40 pounds. Sweat is actually odorless. It's only when bacteria on the skin and hair metabolize the proteins and fatty acids in sweat that it produces an unpleasant scent. Baby blue whales can consume up to 150 gallons of its mother's milk a day. That's a thirsty whale.